What if Anakin Skywalker saved the Night Sisters from Grievous during the Clone Wars? That's our story, and this one's been requested quite a bit, so I'm excited to get to it. Hope you guys enjoy as well, and of course, always leave your requests down below. Let's get right into it. Our story begins on Dathomir as Asajj Ventress is standing outside of the Night Sisters' fortress with Mother Talzin, and together, they were watching as the droid forces led by General Grievous began landing. The war was not supposed to be on Dathomir, but the Separatists need Asajj Ventress dead, and so they were determined to wipe out the entire race of Night Sisters if need be. As the droids began their landing process, Ventress knew deep down that this was a losing fight. Grievous and the droids were capable of slaughtering all of them, and so Ventress ran inside of the fortress, going from room to room, until she came upon the communications device of Mother Talzin. It hadn't been used in very long, but Talzin used to expand her reach to more than just Dathomir. But over the last few decades, she has stayed out of the rest of the galaxy and focused on uniting the many covens of sisters. Talzin was successful in creating one united coven, but now it was about to be destroyed if Ventress could not call for help. She didn't even really know who she was looking for, but Ventress activated the communications beacon, sending out a signal to all nearby systems, hoping for any sort of support. Above the planet Megiddo, Anakin Skywalker and his 501st Legion were providing aid and reinforcements to the battle going down on the surface. Megiddo was one of the longest running battles, but now that Ki-Adi-Mundi and his forces were here, Anakin and his men were about to be sent off to Coruscant to be briefed on their next assignment. And as Anakin waited on the bridge with Ahsoka, Admiral Yularen came, informing Skywalker that they were receiving a distress signal, and it was coming from Dathomir, from Asajj Ventress. Megiddo was just a few planets away on the hyperlane back to Coruscant from Dathomir, so the signal from Dathomir was able to reach them. Anakin and Ahsoka looked to each other, then cautiously asked Yularen to patch them into the signal. It was known that Ventress was no longer part of the Separatists. Dooku abandoned her some time ago, and so Anakin answered the call to see a worried Ventress looking at them. And when Ventress realized who answered the call, her face switched from desperation to a bit of annoyance. Of course, of all people, it's Anakin and his Padawan. But she truly was desperate, and so Ventress told Anakin that her people need help. Anakin was naturally reluctant, so Ventress said that Grievous was leading the attack on her people. This could allow the Republic to capture or destroy the droid general. Ahsoka asked how they can be sure this isn't some elaborate separatist trap, and Ventress bit back that her people are about to be slaughtered. She doesn't have time for these questions. Anakin looked to Yularen, Ahsoka, and Rex, then back to Ventress, and he took over the mission, telling Ventress to hold out for as long as she and her people can. They are on their way with reinforcements. Ventress thanked Anakin, and as the call ended, Ahsoka said she would contact the Jedi Council. Anakin said there is no time. If they want to capture Grievous, they need to go now. And so the 501st Fleet quickly jumped to hyperspace, preparing for battle. Back on Dathomir, Ventress ran outside of the fortress just as the attack was beginning. A squad of vulture droids flew overhead, firing down on the sisters as the sisters spread out around the nearby trees, firing their weapons at the overwhelming droid forces. The initial waves of droids were caught off guard by the resistance of the Night Sisters, as Talzin was rising up in a green orb of her dark magic, firing lightning at the droids. One by one they collapsed to the ground, and it looked as if the Dathomirians may have a real chance to win this fight. But the Separatist droids just kept on coming. Ventress ignited her red blades, taking the lead, leading all of the Night Sisters into battle against the droids. A huge battle would begin throughout the forest, and General Grievous himself would soon spread out into the battle, laughing as he moved around the trees, mercilessly cutting down witch after witch, and he sent in the Defoliator tank, a tank that fired blasts that would hit the ground and spread fire in a large radius. They were going to burn this forest to the ground. And so as Ventress and the witches were taking on waves of droids, the tank rolled in, firing directly at a group of Night Sisters. Most of them made it away from the initial blast, but the fire spread, taking down a few of them. Ventress was able to hide behind a tree, regathering herself, watching her sisters fall in battle, and she was ready to run back into this losing battle as the tank was about to refire. As the tank aimed right for her, 3 Republic gunships suddenly sped from above the tank, firing their lasers into it, and the tank quickly imploded. Clone troopers of the 501st Legion cheered in excitement as the gunships circled back around and clones got to the ground. meeting up with the Night Sisters, saying they're here to help. Ventress told everyone it was okay. She called for this. And Captain Rex moved to the front with Jesse and Ahsoka as they put together battle plans to push the droids backwards. Meanwhile, on the other side of the battle, General Grievous continued walking through the forests with little resistance. The Night Sister named Selena, mother of Morgan Elsbeth, was leading this area of the fight, and she was now in a duel with General Grievous, using ancient weapons to fight against Grievous's sabers, but the battle was being lost. Grievous kicked her to the ground, spinning his sabers, slamming them down on her for the kill, but before the sabers could land, Anakin Skywalker leapt out of the shadows, blocking the strike. Grievous grunted in confusion and anger as Anakin told Selena to go. Grievous looked to Skywalker, saying this is a pathetic place to die, and Anakin sarcastically said it's an honor to finally meet Grievous, as he got into a battle stance. And back in the main area of the forest, the droids unleashed heavy reinforcements of B-1 and B-2 battle droids to counter the new Republic reinforcements, and this likely would have been enough to begin pushing the Republic and Night Sisters back. But Mother Talzin and Old Daka, the oldest member of the Witches, worked to resurrect the fallen Night Sisters, and slowly around the forests, the dead witches were reawakened, and they joined the fight against the droids. As Rex and Jesse were trailing Ahsoka and Ventress in battle, a group of droids surrounded the two clones. But right as the droids were about to take them down, the undead witches reached the battle, destroying these droids. Rex looked to Jesse and just shook his head, saying that he's learned to just stop questioning these things. And the clones fought alongside the undead witches in what was easily the weirdest battle of their lives. Ahsoka and Ventress moved together so efficiently. In another life, perhaps they would have made an excellent Jedi duo, but today, they work together, slicing through Separatist tanks and waves of droids, leading the charge through the forest, protecting their people. And with the dark forests of Dathomir alive with the sounds of battle, amidst the chaos of it all, Anakin was taking on General Grievous. The monstrous cyborg was towering over Anakin, with a truly menacing presence. Anakin had heard about Grievous from Obi-Wan, Kit Fisto, and a few others, but he'd never really seen him himself. He was just as tall as everyone said. Of course, Anakin would never admit that to his face. Grievous was swinging all four of his lightsabers, not messing around here, the blue and green blades casting an eerie glow in the misty red darkness of the forest. His skeletal flame was moving with speed and agility that still caught Anakin off guard, despite the warnings from Obi-Wan. Each strike was deadly, as he laughed at Anakin as he was being backed up. Anakin was barely keeping up with the relentless assault. Sparks flew as their blades clashed. The hum, the crackle of the sabers was filling the air, as Anakin leapt into a tree, only for Grievous to kick it to the ground. Anakin landed, pushing back in against Grievous. The droid general was attacking from multiple angles at once, forcing Anakin to constantly adjust and react. Grievous had Anakin on a ledge, and after a long lightsaber lock, Grievous was able to kick Anakin down this hill, and the Jedi Knight rolled through the trees, finally coming to a stop at the bottom. Anakin was breathing heavily, and he looked back up to the top of the hill. All he could see through the fog was Grievous's yellow eyes and his lightsabers. The sounds of battle filled Anakin's ears, and he reignited his blade, wiping blood from his lip, and he was determined to finish this. As Grievous pursued Anakin down the hill, the droid general received a transmission from Dooku. The Sith Lord was in his castle on Sereno, and he urgently ordered Grievous to find and kill Mother Talzin. Talzin was using an old lock of Dooku's hair to torture him across the galaxy like a voodoo doll, using ancient Night Sister magic to burn through Dooku, slowly killing him. If Grievous could not defeat Talzin, then Dooku would surely die very soon. Grievous said it will be done, and he began crawling on all fours towards the Night Sister forest. Anakin used the Force to grab him, pulling Grievous into a tree, and Grievous yelled out that he doesn't have time for these games, reigniting all four blades, jumping high into the air, slamming the blades down on Anakin. From the other side of the battle, Ventress saw Grievous attacking Anakin, and she told Ahsoka to finish this fight. She was going to defeat Grievous. So while Grievous was once more pushing back a defensive Anakin, he barely saw Ventress attack with her two blades. Grievous managed to block her strike, but this allowed Anakin to take an offensive approach, slicing at Grievous from the right side, while Ventress was on the left. Ventress cut off his lower left hand, but Grievous punched her in the face with his broken arm, before turning back to Anakin. But this gave Anakin the opportunity to slice through both of Grievous's right arms, and Grievous had to block the killing strike with his one remaining saber, allowing Ventress to come from behind and stab both of her blades into Grievous, cutting through him to quickly kill the general once and for all. He died in a fiery pile on the ground, and Anakin was never happier to see Ventress than right now. Anakin would rejoin the main battle as the Dathomirians were able to push the droids back to their ships, making them either retreat or be destroyed. Anakin, Ventress, Ahsoka, the Night Sisters, the clones, undead witches, all of them watched the victory from here. And deep inside of the fortress, Mother Talzin was able to complete her ritual on Dooku. The torture was long and painful as Talzin used her magic to kill the Sith Lord once and for all, ending her destructive relationship with Dooku. The Separatists lost today, and it cost them both Dooku and Grievous. Anakin and Ahsoka would go to the fortress to speak with Talzin and Ventress, while the clones went back to the ships. Talzin told the Jedi that they are very thankful for their help. Relations between the witches and the Jedi were always rocky at best, as the Night Sisters used a form of the dark side when performing their magic, and the Jedi have long been wary of Force users that do touch the dark side. There is no limit to how dangerous the darkness can become, but today, the Jedi learned they can coexist with these witches. Anakin and Ahsoka would thank them for their help in this decisive victory, and they would leave as Anakin said he imagined he has a meeting with the Council, where they will have a lot of questions to ask. So he took off back to Coruscant with his men, and that evening, Anakin was called into a council meeting. All of the members listened anxiously, as Anakin described everything that happened. Ventress called for help, and Anakin couldn't just let the Separatists kill off an entire group of people, so he led the invasion. To everyone's surprise, the attack led to the demise of both General Grievous and Count Dooku. Mace Windu initially was quite frustrated when he heard Anakin was interfering on Dathomir, but he could not argue with the results. He and Yoda both knew that the longer this war dragged on, the worse things will get for the Jedi Order and for the galaxy at large. With the two main leaders of the Separatists dead, perhaps peace talks can be heavily escalated. So over the next few days, the Jedi Order would shift its approach to the war, pulling out some battles, negotiating with senators on both sides. With Dooku and Grievous gone, the Separatist Senate once more actually had a voice and was able to speak up on what they would need to end this war. Meanwhile, Darth Sidious, aka Chancellor Palpatine, was in heavy damage control. When he sent out the orders for Dooku and Grievous to have the witches eliminated, he expected it to be a quick process. But of course, Anakin just had to interfere. He was the hero to the Republic, and he was unfortunately not ready to be turned to the dark side. So after a couple nights, Sidious was deep in his Sith lair when he used ancient Sith alchemy to reach out across the galaxy and communicate with Mother Talzin as they did so long ago. The two of them spoke long before the war, and Sidious almost took her on as an apprentice. But something surprising happened today. As Sidious spoke to Talzin, she knelt down to Sidious and proclaimed that she will still be loyal to him. She wanted to prove her worthiness as an apprentice, and the only way to get Sidious's attention was through violence. Sidious was intrigued by this, though he was also angry, so he decided that if Talzin could prove herself in a fight against him, then he will alter his plans, taking her on as his new apprentice. So, Sidious would take the night, travel to Dathomir, and as he landed at the coordinates given to him, Sidious walked into a clearing surrounded by trees. He felt something off in the dark. Of course, he expected this to be some sort of a trap, but still, what came next would be a surprise. He pulled out two blades and called out for Talzin, and from the fog, out stepped the two Zabrak warriors, Darth Maul and Savage. Savage recently found Maul, and the two of them returned to Dathomir after the battle, so Maul could be repaired. He was back on two legs, and he was ready for revenge. Sidious was genuinely shocked to see his old apprentice, and he saw now this was a trap. From another area of the trees, Asajj Ventress ignited her two blades, as the witches lined up behind her with their bows at the ready. And finally, Mother Talzin floated down from the trees, igniting her own green blade. Sidious let out a laugh that echoed around the trees. He was determined to win this new battle. So in the eerie crimson forests of Dathomir, the warriors would clash in a whirlwind of darkness, with many darkside users in battle against each other. Sidious moved with truly terrifying speed. He looked like a shadow in the wind, his crimson blade slicing through the dense fog, at witches firing their bows at him. Maul, Savage, and Ventress attacked in fierce unison, each strike a vicious attempt to penetrate Sidious's impenetrable defenses. Maul's agility and acrobatics were not what they once were, but he was stronger physically than ever before, and Savage's own brute strength, Ventress's deadly finesse, formed a deadly trio against Sidious. Above them, Mother Talzin was wreathed in green magic, firing tendrils of green lightning down at Sidious, which he was barely moving away from. Trees were splintering, the ground crackling under the sheer force of these warriors. Sidious's malevolent grin never wavered as he sliced through the chaos, his mastery of the darkness allowing him to feed off each assault with ease. And with a sudden ferocious lunge, he severed Savage's right arm, then spun around to deliver a fatal stab as he pushed the other fighters away. Savage roared in agony before collapsing to the forest floor. Now Maul, driven by a newfound rage, launched his own flurry of strikes, determined to destroy Sidious. But the Sith Lord was relentless, and with a swift, brutal motion, Sidious disarmed Maul and impaled him with both lightsabers as well. Maul's eyes widened in shock before he too fell lifeless beside his brother. Ventress pressed on with renewed determination, but also a new sense of fear, and Sidious engulfed her in lightning as she crashed hard into the trees. Sidious approached her, and as the last of the warriors fell, Talzin's eyes blazed with fury. She unleashed a torrent of dark magic, the green energy swirling around her like a storm. Sidious found himself momentarily overwhelmed, his sabers flickering against the onslaught. Talzin's magic tore at Sidious's defenses, bypassing his lightsabers, searing into his flesh, and for the first time, Sidious was faltering, his movements slowing under this assault. He did break free, now meeting the green magic with his own lightning, and Talzin slipped around him, swinging her own green blade at Sidious. The two of them clashed against each other as Sidious was pushing her back, but Talzin swung around, catching Sidious in a leap, wrapping him in her magic tendrils. With a final desperate surge of power, Talzin's magic enveloped Sidious entirely. The green energy was consuming Sidious in a blaze of ancient wrath, as Sidious let out a scream of pure agony, and the dark magic ripped him apart, leaving only a smoldering robe that floated to the ground. This would be her way of repaying the Jedi for their help. The disappearance of Supreme Chancellor Palpatine would cause insane alarm in the Republic for the first few days, and the Jedi were allowed to investigate this disappearance as Obi-Wan Kenobi, Plo Koon, Anakin Skywalker, and Shaak Ti traveled to Raxus with Padme Amidala and a coalition of senators determined to negotiate peace. There were rumors that the Separatists captured Palpatine, which put a quick wrench in the plans for peace, but Windu and Stas Ali quickly discovered the tunnels that were under Coruscant, and they directly led to Palpatine's apartment. Through more searching, Republic leaders would quickly find the truth. Palpatine was using an underground tunnel system to travel to the industrial sector, where Sith artifacts and an array of Separatist battle plans were discovered. It was determined that Palpatine was working with the Separatists, and likely went into hiding after Dooku and Grievous died. Of course, he was dead, but Talzin had no need to report this to the Jedi or to the Republic, so Sidious's lifeless body and robe would forever just be floating away on Dathomir. And this would actually motivate the Separatists and Republic to seek peace even quicker. Both sides were a mess in this war, manipulated by the Sith in their singular vision for galactic supremacy, and the Republic officials determined that the Separatists had a legitimate case for wanting to secede and create their own system. And so, after days of messy negotiations, a ceasefire was agreed upon, and the war concluded, with the Separatists finally becoming a legitimized government. Jedi and clones were called from their battles, and the Separatist corporation leaders like Newt Gunray and Wat Tambor were on the run, desperately trying to continue the war, and ultimately dying trying, as the droids were finally shut down. All of Palpatine's closest advisors were removed from power, allowing an election that saw Bail Organa elected as the new Chancellor of the Republic, while Senator Avi Singh became the leader of the CIS. The galaxy saw peace, and over the next year, Anakin Skywalker would be made a Jedi Master, after Ahsoka became a Jedi Knight, and Anakin would split time between being a Master and being with Padme and his new children, who would eventually be trained as Jedi. On Dathomir, the witches would continue to live in peace, and Ventress would forever be thankful that she called for help on that fateful day. And folks, that is where our story ends today. This is one had written down, at least for a while. I did see the early requests, and one of the requests for this video had like over 100 likes on a comment section, which is rare, and so I really thought about this more. And the more you think about it, the implications of this are pretty large. Like, Grievous leads the attack, Talzin is on the verge of killing Dooku, I think Penti PPSW just made a what if Talzin killed Dooku, so hope this wasn't like too similar to that, but I wanted to take that same approach with Talzin ultimately killing Dooku. And I wanted to explore the interesting relationship between Sidious and Talzin. Maybe I could have gone more in depth there, but there's a lot that goes on between the two of them before the Phantom Menace that results in Sidious ultimately getting Darth Maul. So wanted to explore more of that and just kind of go in on that. Anyways, good to do Ventress. Yeah, I had fun with this one. Cool incorporating the Tales of the Empire scene with Grievous. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know what you want to see next. And I'll see you in the next video.